Hi, I'm Fran. I'm here at CHA and we've been having lots of fun demoing my little beach tiles that are all embossed. So here's how it ends up and I'll show you how we get there. Okay. I'm working on a pancake griddle and I've got it set at about 300, maybe a little bit lower. And this gives me a constant heat from underneath. I've cut my craft sheet into a manageable size piece that I can use over and over again. And I've got some wonderful little chipboard pieces here from clear scraps. And I'll place those on the craft sheet. And the first layer is going to be chunky clear. This is my deep impression chunky clear that we offer in the larger jar, because as you can see, I make this my first thick layer on all my tiles. You can go over the edges because it's not going to hurt it, and it's going to give me a nice puddled thick edge anyway. So once it melts completely, it will go to a darker clear, and I can trap the heat if I have, actually let me do this one. If you have a clear lid, you can put that over and watch what's happening, but give it a few minutes to melt. Meanwhile, while our base is melting, I'm going to show you what I call puddle painting. So I take some more of the chunky clear and I just make random little puddles here. And let's make a couple of them while we're at it. Now I have Pacific Blue, which is also a clear powder, and a little dash of that gives me a beautiful puddle that's going to look like water. We'll just splash a little bit on. So these little puddles, by melting them ahead, will give me an easy way to plop them in later. Next, I'm using my chunky white, and because these are large particles, it gives me a beautiful little splash that might become a cloud or white caps on my little beach scene. So you can make a batch of them, whatever you've got room for on your sheet. And these melt very quickly, and now I will take them off the heat so that they will cool and I can handle them. And now, back to the tile. Okay, now I'm going to use any of my blue opaque powders, and I'm going to start with a light blue, and maybe I can turn it at this angle, which is just where I can reach. And if you have several shades of color, all the better. You can just blend them together, and you can sort of think horizon stripes, but of course with beach, where the sky ends and the water begins, doesn't matter, and a wave might take over and give you a whole active skyline. Now this one is golden sand. It's a beautiful mix of opaque and little bits of other colors and some gold too. And that gives you an instant beach. So if all you did was these beautiful colors, it would work for the illusion of a beach. But there's more. Yeah. So now I'm going to take a little puffy cloud and just peel it off of the sheet, and we'll plop it somewhere up here. And then I like to take a little bit more of the clear blue, and this one will now go down over any of my other opaque colors and give me some nice depth. And then here's my little puddle, so let's turn that around and plop that in. It just gives a wonderful illusion, and clear over opaque begins to melt and push the colors around. And then I'll take a little bit more of the chunky white and sprinkle that across that top edge, and we'll put the lid on just to make sure that our thick puddle really connects to the base colors. Also, I'm going to stamp into it. So I've taken one of my script stamps and I'm going to ink it in black, and we'll show you what we do with that. If you let it sit, and if your pancake griddle is on tilt, sometimes the powders begin to melt away and move, like my flat horizon is now a lovely wave, see? But you can watch it, and at whatever point you're happy with it, move along. Okay, so this little puddle here, okay, so I'm going to take my hair pick. This is one with no plastic tips, so that I can glide through. Look at that. Now I've got a lovely little cloud on the horizon. And then I love to run it through here. Watch this. Look at that. Every time it's a different little unique splash of color. So now it's just about perfect. So we're going to move along. We're going to take our little tools, and by pushing it, we're cleaning the edges. That's the easiest way to round out a nice little edge. Then I'll get my spatula under the craft sheet and the tile, lift them both off together, and I'm gonna get it where it's flat over here. Take my stamp. Okay, and I've got to press it in while it's still molten. So off the heat, because it would keep changing if I didn't. But over here it begins to cool quickly, and I'm holding it in place just because it's so heavy coming off the edge. But I can feel it lift right away, and that came out really nice. So if your stamp doesn't release right away, let it cool, and then it's going to pop out whether or not you have any ink on it. You don't need the ink for the release. So I can lift it up, and it's very warm on the back, but the craft sheet doesn't get hot, so that gives me a way to handle it while I'm in midstream here. So while it's in this state and it's warm, it's like a wax consistency that I can simply use scissors or a craft knife to trim an edge. And you can see all the lovely puddles that I still have on the craft sheet. But once it's cooled a little bit, then it's safe to take it, stand it up back on the heat, and I'm pressing against that edge, and that's going to round out and refine that edge a little bit more if I need to. Sometimes you get a beautiful puddle coming off the edge, but it'll remain fragile and it may break off later. So with the round ones, I usually just clean the edge this way. So there we have a beautiful little beach scene. The easiest way to clean your griddle is when it's warm, and you get a handful of paper toweling so that you kind of have a dry process of just wiping it off. And that way you keep things from getting stuck when you're ready to remove it. So I'll show you one more tip here. If you have some puddles that are quite broken up and very thin, it may be hard to get a hold of them in one piece, but you can take your clear powder again, your chunky clear, and just cover all of those bits with a larger puddle, and this is going to connect the dots. And sometimes you get those really interesting patterns, and it changes pretty fast. So as soon as it melts, you can remove it from the heat and kind of retain those little dots and things. So every time you create a beach scene, it's going to come out a little bit different. On this one, I remembered to put in some of my silver halo